XRP to $8,550. Mystery solved. We found an article today that we're gonna cover, but not just cover that article. We thought we would add in several different points. I believe we've added in several points to bolster this article and bring you something that has what we believe is good value and a good focus to zero in on. Can $8,550 be reached? And we believe by the conclusion of this video, you'll be saying, yep, absolutely. Before we get to that, let's go ahead and take a look at the Decent Wallet. We'll be right back. Owning crypto means you need a self-custody wallet. Leaving your crypto on an exchange is dangerous. Exchanges can be hacked. Exchanges can fail. Exchanges can lock up. I suggest the Decent Wallet. I've owned several wallets. This one has an abundance of features. I love that it has a biometric sensor where I just use my thumbprint to open it up. I love that it connects to an app on my phone, and my phone is a large screen. There's many features to the Decent Wallet. Use the link that appears above here or the link in the description and get you one at a discount. It does support my channel. I appreciate it if you buy one from me, but I suggest the wallet no matter who you buy it from. Again, having owned at least 5 different wallets, I highly suggest this one. This is my favorite. You can pick you one up today using the link in the description or the link that's above my head. Alrighty, Max, you want to go ahead and get us started?
Yes, I just like to advise everybody, especially if you're a regular, it's free. If you're already accustomed to the content, we do kindly ask you to smash that like. If you're completely brand new, understand that we need to possibly earn your like, whatever the case be. Our mission is to bring you guys value and to have you consider subscribing, obviously, to both of our channels. What Will and I have for you guys today is a real eye-opener. It's not going to be your typical fluff that you've seen in regards to many people probably out there who might have possibly cited this particular article. Whatever the case be, we're going to get further into like what Will is talking about, a little bit more about the fundamentals and again, why it all matters for each and every one of you. So we're going to pull this up. This is straight from what's referred to as CoinGape. Now, this is coingate.com, and this was published February 21st, so literally just a few days ago. And it mentions specifically, here's XRP's price if Ripple handled nearly 9 trillion transactions per day. Now, that sounds like a crazy figure, right? But keep in mind, everybody, that they have something here. And where we're going with this is basically the whole thing, like if it replaced Swift. I mean, everybody talks about like, that could be a real possibility. So what do they have? Well, XRP's price would explode to 8,550 if Ripple Network displaces Swift and Visa to emerge as a payment giant with 8.55 trillion daily transaction volumes. Here's this highlight I want to get into, and it says that it would rally as an XRP to $8,550 if the Ripple network outpaces Visa and Swift to dominate the payments industry to process more than 8.55 trillion in daily transactions. While Ripple's blockchain capability can see it make waves in the payment sector, can the XRP price mirror this growth and reach, of course, $8,550 per XRP? For context, look what it says. Swift, the world's largest payment network, processes around 5 trillion to 7 trillion transactions daily. The Swift network can process these volumes as it serves more than 11,000 institutions in over 200 countries. However, Ripple has yet to reach this same level of adoption. And if anything, Will, this is where you come involved, because I believe you have something that you want us to specifically share. What do you got?
Yeah, let's take a look at this right here. All right. So we wanted to add in a couple of factors and have Grok work on that, still using this article as a wrap, and then just adding things into the middle of it to bolster what the article's talking about. And we didn't add in every possibility, but here's first. Swift, the dominant global payment network, moves between 5 and 7 trillion daily, servicing over 11,000 institutions across 200 countries. If Ripple were to overtake Swift's average of 6 trillion daily and track on an additional 2.55 trillion. Now, Grox added this 2.55 because we didn't put in the proper figure of what the article was citing, so it's just made up the difference here. But adding the 2.55 trillion from other channels, it could hit an 8.55 trillion mark. Ripple's blockchain, with its 3 to 5 second settlement times and negligible fees of, this is tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 1/100,000th of an XRP. When we get to number 7 below, you'll see why that's such a big difference of what Swift's dealing with now. But 1/100,000th of an XRP offers a stark contrast to Swift's higher costs and slower processing, making it a prime candidate to handle such volumes if adoption scales. So here it's talked about how many transactions, how much money. Back to you, Max.
Yes, absolutely. Something I want to point out to each and every one of you guys is this. There was an article that was back in, I want to say roughly 2020, 2021. Now, I don't have this, but a lot of you guys know about this article if you've been around Ripple XRP for a while. So you have a particular central bank. For this example, I've used it many times. You have the country of Greece, because back then they were in such trouble, right, to say the least, defaulting on a lot of just of everything you can imagine, and needing to borrow money immediately. So the examples of this, they borrow from a particular central bank overseas. If anything, we'll just say, for example, again, not the exact one, the Bank of South Korea. So what was used in that original article was that it was $10 trillion that was needing to be borrowed. Well, here's the thing, okay? Swift doesn't do the transactions, but they put in the orders. Okay. So, for one, what kind of orders? Well, for one, is to get things processed, called like an order book. So, they use the MT messaging system. And we know that the Swift MT messaging coexistence period of MT messages and ISO 222, that coexistence period ends on November 22nd, 2025. Now, of course, there is a possibility it could get delayed again, because we know about the whole thing in the United States. Delay of March 10th is now in roughly mid to late July. I don't have the exact date on that, but it's at least till July. But where the case be, we're hoping and praying that it's November 22nd of this year. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the price of XRP will pump overnight. Could, but whatever the case is the shift. So coexistence period of Swift MT messages with ISO 222 ends. ISO 222 then takes the cake of being the industry leader, if you will. That technology will be fully used. This is why there's so much emphasis on Ripple XRP for ISO 222, your Stellars, anything tied to ISO 222 messaging. Now, where I'm going with this is this. For me personally, what you guys seen out there when it comes to retail money, when we look at the volumes based off what Swift has reported, well, the volumes stay on average, and maybe Will has a little bit of this when we get further into it, but from what I even gathered, it's $350,000 worth of transactions is the average for a Swift transaction, okay? So what I'm stating is, you have this shift over to Ripple XRP, and if anything, that would incentivize more banks or countries using obviously the central banking system or whatever they're going to use to do higher volumes of transactions. In the past, think about it. If Swift dominated from the 1970s to present, with what they had with the Swift messaging system, well, it de-incentivizes anybody to really move money big money, let's face it, trillions, because they got hit with big fees. And the example I was going to give earlier was that particular transaction of 10 trillion cost, let's say, for example, the Bank of Athens $60 billion in fees off a $10 trillion transaction. That's why they're not getting in line to sign up for some of this stuff. And who wants to get hit with those big fees? My thing is this: Ripple XRP for on-demand liquidity was my original selling point of getting into XRP, on-demand liquidity. Okay, so more money would be incentivized, or I should say, more banks and countries would be more incentivized to move money. We would see the utmost amount of transactions the world has never ever seen before. And back to what Will was talking about with the hose theory. So if Swift, it does $350,000 on average on like the order books for transactions, well, then you have other players. You have JP Morgan, which was reported doing 8 trillion a day. Yes, US dollars a day. But it was reported that 20 to 30% of those orders from the order books come from Swift. All right, if Ripple is a bridge currency, which I should say if it is, well, then they are taking a piece of that pie. That might be the biggest piece of the pie, because Visa in itself, yeah, that's a payment processor. MasterCard is a payment processor. So again, a bridge to that, bridge to Visa, bridge to MasterCard, bridge to obviously JP Morgan. And then we start multiplying this. It's like, yeah, guess what? They still have all these connections, like Swift was mentioning 11,000 plus banks and, or I should say institutions, 200 countries. If you look into Ripple, doesn't that sound very familiar? My point is incentivizing money movement at volumes that have never been seen before. I'm going to kick it back over to Will, because Will, the way I look at it is, this just further pounds home not just a $10,000 XRP, but for this example of the $8,550 mystery behind XRP and this high price XRPs.
Yeah, I agree. It brings in, it motivates for transactions. Let's take a look at number 2. Can you share that?
Yes, sir. It's on screen.
All right. Second, envision Visa and MasterCard, which processes around 30 billion each daily, integrating XRP into their networks, which we know that they are adopting XRP in their systems. If these payments behemoths used XRP, which they're going to, as a bridge currency for cross-border transactions, capitalizing on its speed and cost efficiency, Ripple's daily transaction volume could leap forward. This adoption would elevate XRP's utility and market trust, driving demand and supporting a path towards 8,550 as more institutions would rely on it. Let's look at number 3 too, and we'll put this third one along with the second one. Third, the near-term approval of XRP exchange-traded funds could tighten supply dynamics, with Hashdex's spot XRP ETF greenlit in Brazil and US filing with Bitwise, Canary, Capital, and Wisdom Tree under SEC review. There's also a total of 13, by the way. ETFs could lock up significant XRP volumes. This reduction in availability supply would create a supply and demand push, lifting prices as institutional investors gain exposure without hitting exchanges directly. Polymart's 80% odds of US ETF approval in 2025 further fuel the momentum. All right, Max, speak on that for a second.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it as well. There would be such momentum that I think a lot of people don't realize. ETFs in itself means, as Will has pointed out numerous times, and also myself, it means more of lockup of XRP. This is not just one particular ETF, locking it up. You've seen like what Will just shared with you guys, 13. That list is obviously going to grow. It might grow further past 2025. But whatever the case be, that is XRP being locked up. Now, my other key thing is, recognizing like things like burns. We don't necessarily talk about that enough. I believe, Will, if I'm not mistaken, you have an example in regards to that specifically, do you not?
About earning yield?
No, in regards to burns and whatnot. I don't know if
Oh,
that's the
yeah,
next
yeah.
part. Yeah.
Yeah, how much is burning? I think it's covered on here. We'll cover some of the burn features here in just a moment. We'll look at number 4, and I believe that is in here. Fourth, XRP's price would hinge on the roughly 7 billion XRP available on exchanges. This is an aspect that's overlooked sometimes. If you go to the store, you can only buy how much is sitting there on the shelf. Sitting on the shelf of the exchanges is about 7 billion XRP, and that's it. The key pool for banks and institutions to tap is that particular pool. And you're going to probably think, well, also the escrow. With a total supply of 100 billion, this limited exchange traded reserve becomes critical. If Ripple possesses 8.55 trillion daily, institutional demand for these 7 billion coins would surge, squeezing supply and propelling prices towards the 8,550 that we're talking about here. Now, let's look at 5 since it's totally associated with it. Fifth, Ripple's escrow system locks up most of the 100 billion XRP, with around 42 billion held back and released in controlled batches. As you know, they release a billion monthly. But also, as you know, they return 800 million of that. Did you know that's locked up for 40 months? So we have a 40-month backlog of lockup. Well, that limits how much is actually in their liquid form that they can grab a hold of. And that's what this is speaking towards here. This leaves just 6 billion XRP immediately available outside the escrow. It's actually inside the escrow and the exchange pools. So if you add those together, you got 6 and 7. You got 13 billion that are totally available. With such a tight liquid supply, any spike in demand from handling 8.55 trillion daily would amplify scarcity, pushing XRP's value upward in line to the $8,550 price mark. That's pretty interesting, isn't it, Max?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this just, pounds home more about what you were mentioning about the whole thing of, under 6 billion XRP technically being available for, I guess you could say, in circulation, what's left, technically speaking. I had a few people, whether it's on my channel or yours, they just pull up the typical stuff from CMC. They don't cite what's from or being referenced on ETS. They don't cite, other factors. They just go right to CMC. Yep, I saw there's 100 billion of these XRP coins. You guys don't have your facts straight. It's like, did you even listen to the outline? Oh, you probably clicked out after 5 minutes. But that's no knock on anybody. We do appreciate you guys, but that's the reality, and we recognize some of these things. My thing is, you just you can amplify this more. You can multiply this more. Like, it's not just going to be even at 13 ETFs. Will, the way I look at it is that's pretty significant. But again, this could grow a lot, further from just 13. So, I mean, my thoughts are, again, this pounds home what you mentioned in regards to roughly around 6 billion XRP that's actually left.
Now we added in. You had the idea about the UST and Terra Luna, and so we wanted to kind of parallel that with RLUSD. Of course, the difference being RLUSD isn't going to fail or become depegged because it's a one-to-one backing with actual U.S. Treasuries. But that's number 6. If you draw a parallel to USDT, if y'all remember, USDT drove Terra Luna's price up to what, around $100 pretty quick, just because of that was the liquidity reason, wasn't it, Max?
Well, I'll interrupt you on that one. Will's misspoke, and it's okay, guys. There's so many darn abbreviations and terms. He's not referring to Tether. He's referring to UST, as in
Yeah, that's
USDT, right?
did I
That's with
say D?
Tether.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. UST. But go ahead.
All right, yeah, UST drove the price of Terra Luna up, and so if we parallel that with RLUSD, of course, knowing RLUSD is not going to have the DPEG, Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin backed 1-to-1 with U.S. Treasuries could boost XRP's price by burning tiny amounts of XRP per transaction, just like UST's unbacked model. RLUSD's treasury support avoids a Terra-like demise, offering a stable mechanism to enhance XRP's value as usage grows. Now, you were mentioning the loans that had to take place recently. This is another place where RLUSD could come in, don't you think, Max?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, an example I want to share with you guys is, when we talk about this whole thing of Terra Luna, right? Now known as Luna Classic, we got to reference the past. So, in examples of what Will and I have gathered between each other was, well, reference what was formerly called Terra Luna. You had the utility of UST. It was pegged to a dollar. Obviously, we know about the history of it. May 2022, it crashed significantly, lost its peg, caused, that and FTX were probably the two worst things other than Mount Gox as far as, horrible crashes in the overall market. But whatever the case be, UST was the driving force. That in itself, even though it was algorithmic stablecoin, that was the driving force for Terra Luna, which we saw Terra Luna go up to over $100 at one particular point. And again, we understand that, the dominoes fell. Terra Luna was like Jenga, basically. It just couldn't stand it. It eventually tipped over. But my point is, I think it's a good reference about having a firm understanding of, well, look, Ripple XRP is not just Ripple XRP anymore. You have, for example, RLUSD, and now we have institutional players looking into, hey, you know what? Donald Trump has stated that he wants to make the United States of America the crypto capital of the world. RLUSD definitely stands out. And when we get full regulations, I think it's going to stand out even that much more. Well, it's a whole different game if you're comparing it, obviously, to Terra Luna. Now, some of you guys may not like me to compare it, and I get it. It's some people are like, well, this is apples and oranges. Fair, I get it. But it's a great example of price drivers. And where I'm going with that is UST in itself was that price driver for Terra Luna. Ripple, RLUSD, of course we should reference this. Of course we should look at, like, yeah, guess what? RLUSD, thank God that thing got made. Because that will also definitely help Ripple XRP's price to grow exponentially and then some. So when we look into the fundamentals of this and so on, it's just like, yeah, you know what? Not only will it incentivize your central banks and other countries that will get the central banks involved in regards to transactions, but forget the whole thing of just retail money. When we talk about that smart money, it is recognizing that, guess what? It will dramatically incentivize programmable money to be finally moved. I mean, if you think about it, back to the original Bitcoin white paper, a peer-to-peer cash system. When you look at Ripple, to a sense, they're trying to do that, but then and then some, right? And so they're even going to capture some of that retail world. And I think obviously Stellar is going to shine in that regard, but there's something a little bit different when you had Trump meet up with Stuart Algerati, meet up with Brad Garlinghouse. I think a lot of people, even to this day, are still sleeping on XRP. There's going to be people in the comments, can we get to $5 first? Could we get $10 first? I'm telling you flat out, regulations are going to be the driver. I'm going to kick it back to you. There's a lot to be discussed here, Will, but I think we got a lot to get into the weeds about. Go ahead.
UST was a good example. Another great example was Bitcoin and USDT. Tether really drove the price of Bitcoin, helped it out with the liquidity running right alongside it. That's another great example of a crypto coin getting driven up in price just because of a stable coin. Well, let's look at number 7. This one's pretty intriguing. 7th, RLUSD's availability and low fees could further elevate XRP's price by outcompeting SWIFT's costlier system. For example, a $1 trillion SWIFT transfer might incur fees ranging from $20 million to $50 million, plus additional intermediary bank charges. In contrast, an RLUSD transaction on Ripple's network, leveraging XRP's base fee of 1/100,000th of an XRP, currently valued at approximately $2.50, would cost approximately 25 cents for $1 trillion if scaled proportionately across multiple transactions. This huge price difference, 20 million to 50 million versus 25 cents, don't you think would motivate banks and institutions to utilize RLUSD more heavily, increasing transaction volume on Ripple's network, and in turn adding more upward pressure to XRP's price as demand for the underlying asset grows? If RLUSD, with its one-to-one treasury backing, becomes a preferred stablecoin for payments, its integration with XRP, the network's backbone, could spike XRP demand even further. Now, we just know that's true. So relating this stablecoin, like Max, you were doing, relating UST to Terra Luna, and also in USDT to Bitcoin, we can look at RLUSD to XRP. We're probably going to have the same effect and the same use case, and we have much less fees. The fees of XRP, I mean, what incredibly low fees there. I mean, that even makes me want to check it to see if it's right. It's going to cost a quarter to move $1 trillion. But the conclusion here, trying these together, the $8,550 price target emerges as a theoretical ceiling under optimal conditions. If Ripple handles 8.55 trillion daily, eclipsing Swift's 6 trillion, with help from Visa, MasterCard, XRP demand would explode. ETFs locking up supply and 7 billion XRP on exchanges and 6 billion liquid coins from Ripple's reserves would create acute scarcity. RLUSD could amplify this, mirroring UST's effect on Luna, but with stability. While its low fees of 25 cents versus Swift's 20 million to 50 million would drive institutional adoption, further boosting XRP's price, market dynamics, including retail FOMO as prices climb, would ignite a frenzy with traders piling in as XRP utility shines. Though ambitious, this scenario hinges on unprecedented adoption, institutional buy-in, and retail euphoria, aligning with this article's bold yet speculative conclusion. Still, it's a stretch without a near perfect execution and market tailwinds. Now, there's certain things we didn't add in, Max. There's many other factors we didn't add in, but I just think as a basic show that $8,550 is possible. I think that's pretty good, a pretty good rundown.
Yeah, everybody, listen. I honestly think it is a great rundown. I think this is a realistic thing. We've been doing this ongoing series, Will, when it comes to the whole idea of, more reasons for $10,000 XRP. We went a little bit further with this, try to give you guys some examples in that regard. But again, even with that last example that Will shared, I mean, if you think about it, pull this back up on the screen for just a brief moment. Look what it says. You see the whole thing of, again, we'll have to double check it, 25 cents versus like 20 million. Well, even if that was off, it's going to be significantly less expensive. So, again, back to what we were talking about earlier, and that is this would incentivize your banks, institutions, countries to not just move more money, but let's say they do want to borrow more money. In closing, Will, because I know this is quite the deep dive, everybody, Will has mentioned this numerous times. It's your hose theory. So if Swift is doing the whole thing at 350,000 on average, the way I look at it is, again, countries would be more incentivized to move not just $350,000 of an average transaction, but you would see a lot more. It would be not just billions, but like you would see commerce, international commerce put on chain. Ripple will be the dominant force moving forward, and we would see money being moved like never before in the history of mankind. This is where we get the whole narrative of, like history is being made here, but again, it's got to be regulations. That's the next magic part. I know there's a lot of blood, red days lately. People are in panic. I capitalized on that panic. I bought the bottom on a few things like XDC, ZBEC, but I just want to get your closing thoughts because you do share the hose analogy quite a bit, and think about it, Will. I mean, $10 trillion or more between countries, they're going to, of course, go with Ripple XRP. You got to tell me that there's somebody at the administration of the highest office for whatever country is not going to get the memo to whatever president or prime minister and say, hey, we're not, Swift doesn't do this thing anymore with MT messages. There's this thing called ISO 222. The messages aren't truncated anymore. Greek doesn't get lost in translation to Korean anymore. We could read a full log file without truncation and have it interpreted. And guess what? There's this company, Ripple XRP, and they'll do it literally for less than pennies, as you cited, like 1/100th of an XRP. Give me a break. They're all going to get in line for this because they realize it's the big smart money. And most of those institutions or countries, they are fully aware of who XRP is because they made some noise, to say the least, recently. I talked you guys' ears off. I want to hear from Will. Back over to you, brother.
Okay, and I was thinking about, and you bring this up, you have the market cap bros that feel like the money has to be piled up in market cap before it can be extended out to that's what the price of XRP is. And that's not the way it goes. But I want to use, as an analogy, I want to use market cap. Really, what you have in available coins is about 13 billion available XRP. If you add to that what the private sector might add in selling theirs when all these major transactions take place, then you can make up your figure there. But most of the XRP is tied up; it's locked up. Most of it's locked up. Most of the big wallets, all of the top 10 wallets, have only grown in XRP and haven't used any of it. They haven't sold any of it. So if you just move right along and say there's about 13 billion XRP, well, you can pretend for a moment that that's the market cap, that there's only 13 billion coins. That's what you need to divide by, the available coins. Add in some from the wallets. Say you wanted to go to 20 billion. 20 billion would probably be a safer figure, not 100 billion, to figure what would need to take place in the moving of the money that is for the purpose of cross-border. So the 100 billion factor gets wore out. Well, most of that stuff is not moving. all of the price of XRP is going to be controlled by the ones that are available for cross-border. As those get tapped out, the price is going to go up, which is great because then that affords the ability to move the amount of money that needs to be moved by it being at a greater price. And the hose analogy is if you have 10 hoses going into one hose, and then the outside of that large hose is another 10. You have 10 hoses coming together to go through XRP being the center hose. Well, that hose has to be able to accommodate all of the money that's being moved on a regular basis. So it's not just one big purchase and they hold it, but it's constant purchasing and selling and purchasing and selling. So that movement of flow increases the center hose gets fatter and fatter and fatter because there's a constant amount of money being moved. And that's what's going to drive the price. Well, there's not 100 billion coins to move all of that money. There's only 13 billion plus whatever you want to add in from private wallets. So in that analogy, getting to a price of $8,550 becomes totally feasible because there is a reduction in the amount of supply. There's a supply crunch that's here. It's upon us. The way it exists right now is there's not 100 billion available. So my conclusion on this is, of course, it can get to 8,550. When is a whole nother topic. But yeah, it's possible.
Excellent analysis, my friend. Thank you for that. I love your hose analogy. This has been quite the deep dive video. We're going to end it here just in a bit. We kindly ask you, each and every one of you, especially if you're the regulars, hopefully we earn that like. And if you're a person that's new, hopefully we earned your like. But more importantly, your subscription if you really have gotten value from the content. So with that said, if you listen to the entire outline, simply type in this key term into the comments, and that is supply crunch, and we'll know that you listened to the entire outline. On behalf of myself and the one and only Will Fix, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research, not the market cap, trumps FUD 110%. We'll see you on the next one.